There we go. All right, everybody. Welcome back to week 9 of the Business Essentials Academy. Today, you're going to have Jimmy Haugen and myself talking about, Jimmy's going to talk about sales and I'm going to talk about process and systems. Quick intro for Jimmy. If you haven't read his bio, he's got over 16 years in sales and sales management. He started off in software consulting and has worked for Fortune 100 companies the past 5 years. His focus has been in the entrepreneurial space. So he's recently just built an industrial computing hardware company. And he's in his 3rd year of business, born and raised in Minnesota. And he is going to talk to you all about sales. So Jimmy, give me 1 second and make sure I have this set up so that I'm viewing you.
No problem.
There you go. Yeah, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you all are having a great week. I'm excited to be here to share some things about sales. Let me just share my screen. 1 second. All right. Okay. Can you see my screen okay, Corey?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Awesome.
Oh, wait. Well, no, hold on. We're looking at the presenter view. We're not looking at.
Oh.
So if you got dual screens going, you're showing the wrong one there.
This.
So you should be able to swap displays up there in the top left.
Yep, I got it. Top left. Technical difficulties. Let me just do this. Still got me?
Yep, see you.
How about now?
No, we're still looking at the presenter view.
Still on presenter?
Now we're just looking at your PowerPoint. There you go.
All right. Perfect. Okay, yeah, Corey, thank you for the introduction. Like he said, my background is in sales and sales management. And really, there's 2 primary things that I want to cover today. One is, I know some of you are possibly new to sales. Some of you might have more experience than I. So I want to touch on a couple things that, in my experience over the years, have really helped me grow, especially when I got into the entrepreneurial space. One of those is the avenues to build a pipeline. And then also is the importance of a sales process. Now, when you're first starting out, sometimes you think, well, it's just me. I'm doing all these things. I don't really need a process. But the end game is to obviously grow your company. And to grow your company, you got to add people. So the importance of having a process in place so that when you bring people on board, you're able to scale. So I am here to help. The things that I'm going to be sharing with you are kind of tailored towards Comtronics, which is I'm a partner in. It's an industrial computing company. And again, all the things that I'm showing you, I will provide to Corey, and he can give them to you if you want them, and you can incorporate those into your own line of business. So I'm here to help, and really the goal is I want you to take away 2 things that you can implement into your business. So actionable, tangible takeaways that you can implement into your business. So when you take a step back, is about 10 years ago, I got really involved into triathlons. And for those of you that don't know much about triathlons, is there's three primary phases. It's swim, bike, and run. And when you get involved in triathlons, it's like, where do I start? What goggles do I buy? What type of bike do I get? Where do I get my shoes? What type of pedals? What type of running shoes? What's my nutrition going to look like? What type of water bottles are great? So there's all these things that you need to gather together just to get started. And then it's what's the process and plan to train so that you don't kill yourself during a triathlon. And as you get involved and you do more and more triathlons, you're going to learn certain things, adjustments, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, things to focus on. So that kind of segues me into really the avenues of, where do we start? And let's talk a little bit about filling the pipeline. One of the things that I think is extremely important when you're starting out is to have one central system, one repository where all your information is housed. And that product that we use is Hubspot. It is a really awesome product. It's very intuitive. There is a free version with limited functionality. So if you're concerned starting out about expenses, which I think this is more of an investment versus an expense, you can certainly download it and play around with it. So from a Comtronics standpoint, everything we do from a pipeline lead generation standpoint is all funneled into HubSpot. And I'll show you around a little bit for those of you that aren't familiar to give you a flavor of kind of how we operate. Sometimes I think that helps. And I do want to make sure that we have time at the end to engage and ask questions. I think that's extremely important. So some of these things are going to look familiar to you. So let's first start out up here with the basic social platforms: Twitter, Insta, as the kids call it, Facebook. We leverage these for more of the personal take, whether that's employees or myself, sharing stories so that people can connect more on the human level. I think, as sales leaders, sales individuals, we can kind of forget that, people buy from people and you can learn a lot. So we do a lot more of that engagement on those platforms because we're B2B. I will tell you that initially when we started Comtronics, we spent a lot of money on Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn was the best from a B2B standpoint. So those of you that are more in the B2B space, I'll get into LinkedIn in a second, but these platforms here, again, more of that personal touch, but also it's when we do company posts, we'll reshare those across more of our personal platforms. So that's one area where you can do more of brand awareness and those types of things, at least from a B2B standpoint. If you're B2C, there are some great tools in here from a marketing standpoint and a branding standpoint, and I would highly recommend that you leverage that. The other important thing is your website. I think from a brand standpoint, it is obviously important to have a website. When we started out, I was watching YouTube videos in the wee hours of every single day, trying to figure out how to build a site. So there are ways that you can, if you have limited budget. We use, ours is just a basic WordPress site. We do have an e-commerce integration into it, but the importance of a website, that's who you are. And one of the things too is make sure that, I'm sure you guys are just like me, is there's a lot of websites out there. When you hit them, you're like, man, I don't even understand what these people do. So make sure that it really focuses on, who you are and what you do, because really that's kind of the face of the company. From a lead standpoint is we have chat integrated onto our website where we engage, new customers. A lot of our customers are in the tech space, so they like to use chat. We also do a lot of our RMAs, so our support stuff goes through chat, and then we've got a lot of forms If you're a first-time visitor to our site, there's a welcome to Comtronics. Do you want to join our community? So there's those types of things that you can do from a website standpoint to generate leads. LinkedIn, there's two different avenues that we use. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a great way to find, targeted contacts that fit really your targeted market. So for us is, we're in manufacturing, distribution, logistics, robotics. So we leverage Sales Navigator to find individuals in those verticals, but also specific to title. Engineering and IT is really the two focus. So that is a great tool. It is fairly expensive. I don't know how many of you guys are using them, but or using that. But it is a good tool. One of the things we're using more is LinkedIn groups. There's a lot of groups, thought leadership groups. Some of them like digital supply chain. There's some automotive groups that we're in. I mean, they've got hundreds of thousands of individuals, and you basically have to, kind of get the keys to the castle, and they'll let you into the group. But it's a great spot to just share. We do a lot of collaboration there, thought leadership, not necessarily like, hey, here's our industrial embedded computer line, how many do you want to buy? But more of the thought leadership. And you'd be surprised how many people are scrolling, just like Instagram and Facebook, and access those groups. So I would really recommend that, based on your industry set, and I'm assuming we have, people that are, financial services or service group or consulting companies, SaaS-based software companies on this call, or, product type companies. So there's so many groups out there, and it's really great to get connected and just to share your story about what you have to offer. So that's another avenue that we leverage quite heavily. The other thing that's been really productive for us is, let's look at my notes here, the industry publications. So again, whatever space you're in, white papers, there's a lot of thought leadership that goes on in those spaces too, where you can read up about not only your competition, but industry trends and those types of things, and create content, share that content on there, offer free webinars. We used to go to a lot of trade shows, but with COVID, those are more virtual now. But there's a lot of ways that you can generate leads through industry publications. The other side would be, SEO. Obviously Google's a big player there. It does get spendy. There are a lot of people out there. I think Alex spoke to this group maybe a couple weeks ago. He's a brilliant individual. He's very good at marketing and neuromarketing. And I would recommend that you speak to someone in that space, because it can get spendy, but it also can be very powerful as well. The other thing too is that just popped into my head, because I mentioned Alex, is more than neuromarketing is a lot of people are using these to drive leads. And if you can think outside the box, like for us, is we're in the tech space. A lot of the individuals that we deal with are engineers or IT people, and they're very technical. And a lot of those individuals are gamers, which I am not. But most of them have Twitch accounts. And Twitch is a gaming platform. You can log in, create an account, and literally watch people play Fortnite or whatever the other popular games are now. So we're going to be creating a Twitch account this year and spending time in there engaging with those people. And it's more of just from a branding standpoint, from a technical standpoint. So as you guys are looking at, again, how do you fill this pipeline? How are you generating leads? try to think outside the box and in a line where your target market might be. I think that's really important moving down the road. The other thing that we leverage, and I'll show you some of these platforms here in just a second to give you kind of a high level overview. But it's called Sales Genie. I think it's called Data Axle now, or like a Zoom Info. And we use Data Axle. I think right now you can get 500 downloads, I think, for a couple $100 a month. And you can do monthly, you can do a 3-month plan, you can do a 6-month, you can do a year. But it's a great way to, again, you can filter on SIT codes or industry sets. You can pick titles. And the cool thing about these platforms is if they do have email addresses, they've opted in. So if you are sending email campaigns out, which we do directly through Hubspot, they've opted in. So you're not going to get, blacklisted. So those are, again, if you're just kind of starting out and you're like, man, I don't know where to go or what to do, that's a great way to at least get some targeted contacts where you then can start marketing to. And then you can pull the old Chris Farley here is, pick up the phone and contact people, which is more old school, but again, we're humans. And that is an important piece of filling the pipeline. So I'll pause there for a second. I think we're saving questions to the end, right, Corey?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, cool. So let me just jump out here and so for what it's worth, I'll just give you a quick insight into the CRM and inbound marketing platform that we use. So this is HubSpot. And when I'm talking to people, I always like to share this because it is where myself and all of my reps, our service people, they're all in here. This is where we do all of our work, and everything's tied in. What I just explained from a lead gen standpoint, it's all tied into here. So they have some really cool dashboards and metrics where you can look at, your sales totals and deals created, website visits, activity by team, how many calls, how many emails, landing page views, and form submissions. It's an extremely powerful tool. We're using the pro version of both sales and marketing, the marketing platform, but it's a very, very, very powerful tool. So I would highly recommend, again, is whether you're starting out now or you don't have a CRM system, I think it's very important to have that central repository where as you scale, it's where people are living and breathing each day. There's some nice features. We work on targeted accounts. So these are companies that we've either done business with or we send very targeted email messaging to, which is really neat. You can see, contacts inside, open deals, deal values, when's the last touch point, last engagement. So these are more, you can carve this stuff out and really get granular on your messaging into each segment. We also break ours down by the different channels that we sell into. So we have solution partners and OEMs, value-added resellers. We do direct. And each one of those gets specific messaging. This is an example of, we use the built-in marketing tool inside of HubSpot. So we do a lot of email marketing campaigns, and we have set up workflows. So a lot of this stuff is automated. So when this email went out about our industrial panel computer, it's going to give you, your open rates, unique opens, your unique clicks, delivery, your bounce rates, unsubscribes. And then there's a really cool heat map where it'll show you where people clicked, the top click links. And then here's our top engaged accounts. So we know that Scott Hassler at Capital Tri-State opened this email 20 times. And based on click patterns within this, he gets served up different content in an automated workflow. So 5 days from when he clicked, he'll get another one. Based on his engagement, he'll get another one. So we really try to move to automation, which really helps scale. So again, I'm just sharing this with you guys to give you guys ideas of, we started out really at a really small level, but kind of built up. And I think it's just important to share with people and give them visibility on, what you can be doing and ideas to put into your head as you're trying to scale your business. So that's a little bit about HubSpot. We do all of our quotes through here. All of our service tickets come through. So it's a very, very powerful tool. Let me just do a time check here. Okay. This would be an example of the LinkedIn groups that I mentioned. So this is an electronic and electrical manufacturing group. And again, you guys can go out and search for this stuff and, do as many as you possibly can. But you can see here that it has 28,000 members. And a lot of the stuff is thought leadership, just cool things in tech that's going on in the electronic and electrical manufacturing space, which we play a lot in. And these are a lot of the contacts that we want to be engaging with as well. So again, highly recommend if you're not doing that. If again, I hope that you get 1 to 2 actionable, tangible takeaways from this. This would be one to definitely do, and it's free. This is Data Axle. So Tim Cooley is one of my reps. He's actually based out of Omaha. So this is a list that I'm pulling for him. And you can see all the filters that I've used. And again, I think we pay $200 so bucks a month for this, and we get 500 downloads. So again, you can filter by industry group. So I've filtered by distribution companies, service-oriented companies, and manufacturing companies. Different targeted sales volume ranges. I was, his where he actually lives in Omaha, Nebraska, so his own backyard. And then here's the titles that we want to go after. And then basically when you run the search, it's going to give you a list of all those companies and contacts that match all that criteria. And then we basically export this right into HubSpot, and then they go into our marketing email list. So it's a great platform. There's, I said Zoom Info. It's a little more expensive. There's some other ones that leverage more AI that are fairly cool. But again, a tool to use if again you're just starting out, or if you're been around for 10 years. I really think this is it's a nice way to continue to build and provide leads. And then again, the importance of your website, and we have an e-commerce arm to this. We don't do a lot with it, but the reason that we have the e-commerce arm is a lot of the individuals that are poking around our site are technical, and they want to see what type of configurations that they can get with our products. So again, is having a nice website that really explains kind of who you are and what you do is extremely important. So hopefully there was some value there around lead generation. And again, hopefully you guys have some questions that I can answer at the end. So the next item I wanted to talk about is sales process. So let's see here. Okay. So I'm a big, huge process guy. I think that it's no matter what infancy stage you're in your business, it's extremely important. And I'm willing to give you guys this. I can strip out the branding, and you guys can take it. You can trash it. You can make it your own, which I hope you do. But let me walk you through how we go about kind of our sales process. So we have 4 buckets: vision, value, power, and plan. So on the vision bucket this is really kind of where you're starting out. And what we really try to do is, it's very important to make sure that you're asking differentiated questions to uncover differentiated needs that only your product or solution can solve. So again, as salespeople, we tend to talk a lot, but we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So the importance of asking questions is critical, which I'm sure all of you guys understand. But really is, so have you uncovered a business issue? So again, asking those pertinent questions to uncover an issue that individual is having. 2 is there a compelling event? So what is there a reason for us to change devices? What's going on there? Understanding your competition is extremely important. And then another thing that a lot of people, at least when I was starting out, I was almost afraid to ask is around budget. What type of budget do you have? Do you have budget? When do you do your budgeting cycle? How often? So those are really important things to understand, because you want to make sure when you're starting out that you actually know that there's a problem that you have a solid solution for. You might not know what that solution is yet, that you've identified who you're going to be competing against, and do they have actual budget to spend on it. So we kind of check box these, and then we move into the next bucket. So once we've uncovered a business need, then is uncovering the business value. So in our space is a lot of times when we start asking questions, our customers have gone down a thought track where they thought that they needed this solution. But when we actually started asking questions and really understood what they were trying to accomplish, they ended up over here in a whole different solution. So again, really asking the right questions to understand what product or service you can put in place and what the value is. This next one I think is really important, and it kind of gets lost in translation. And that's really the building the relationship and that trusted advisorship with your customers or your prospects, excuse me. And, understanding what it means to them. So is it time to implementation? Is it purely cost? Is it, if they're successful at this, do they get a promotion? Are they able to get home to their family faster? So what's really the personal reasons behind, that decision maker looking at us trying to solve a problem? So it again is you don't want to kind of cross the line and get too personal, but I think it's something that does get lost in translation, and it's extremely important to make sure that you're uncovering that personal value as you're going through the sales cycle. Obviously, you're going to want to have a differentiation strategy in place. So, what's your differentiation between the competition? And again, is the right product set for the solution. And then for us is a lot of times we find value in that thought leadership educational session. So instead of it being a salesy type presentation, is we're really educating them based on what we know about the issues that they're having, what we've done with other customers that might have had similar issues, and how we've solved those. So it's more of an educational presentation versus a sales presentation, talking specs and pricing and those types of things, because that gives a lot of validity to your solution. But it also, for us, we're engaged with a lot of highly technical people, and the last thing they want to do is listen to a sales rep blab all the time. So once we move from vision to value, then we get down to power, and this is all geared around really the buying side of it. So we've uncovered the business need. We've positioned our product. There's value there. We've differentiated ourselves. We know we've got a good product. We've given them this educational presentation. Now it's important to make sure that we're understanding the procurement process. So for us, especially if we're dealing with Fortune 100 corporations, there's a lot that goes into that. So it is extremely important that you've confirmed the sign-off process. So who does make the decision? Corey, if you're the main decision maker, is there anyone else in your organization that also needs to sign off on this? Have you confirmed and validated that the funding is still available? And you need to consistently do that, because I've been caught numerous times where things change, especially with larger projects. And, maybe one project gets cut because they need funds from that project to fulfill a more important project. So it is important to make sure that you're continually asking these types of questions when it comes to the decision-making and buying process. Reaffirming that it meets all of their requirements. And again, is there anyone else that needs to be involved in this? Because a lot of times you might have someone come in at the last minute that is a key decision maker, and you want to make sure that you're in alignment with what they're thinking as well. Let's see. And then an evaluation plan. So in our scenario, and this might not be applicable to everybody else, but a lot of people want to test our product. So we make sure that we have an evaluation plan in place. So if you can certainly demo our product, but what is your test plan? So if we check all those boxes, are you willing to move forward with our product? And then we jump into the planning stages. So again, I think it's important too, at least in our line, and from my background was really in software, large software enterprise deals, is putting together a close plan. Not a lot of people do that anymore. And really asking them for commitment. And sometimes we fail to do that. And when you do ask commitment, then you just need to stop the conversation and let them answer. And if they do have any objections, then you handle them at that time. So again, is really putting that closed plan in place, confirming the date of order, making sure again that you've got everything buttoned up from the configuration, the quantity, the rollout schedule, and then again validating who's sending the purchase order by when, and making sure that you're setting up a time to go through this and have sign off. So those are really the 4 buckets from a process standpoint that we follow. And that's the 30,000 foot view. So on the bottom here, as you can see, that under vision is, and we provide this again, so when we onboard reps, they get this. So they can have high level conversations with pretty much anyone in an organization. And when they're in the vision, so the first stage of prospecting, the vision bucket, there's all these questions that we've put in here that they can ask under uncovering business issues. Here's the compelling event. Here's budget confirmed. And again, I kind of covered a lot of these, but what I would suggest, if this is something of value to you guys, is to make this your own. How does this tie into your specific line of business? So 30,000 foot view, and then under each one of the buckets, you have questions for each one of these topics. There's power and there's plan. And I covered a lot of these questions when I was going through it. So that's the sales process. Here's the deep dive into those. And then we actually provide them with, based on product set, specific questions. So once they've determined a solution, is here's specific questions. So this is our industrial embedded computer. Here's the specific questions that they're asking to make sure that we have the right configuration on the product. And that goes across all of our different product lines. So again, I know I kind of covered that fairly quickly, but hopefully at the end, there's some time that you guys can ask questions and then maybe I can give some clarity to it. But it's really important that you have some sort of sales process put in place. I won't guarantee it, but I think what you'll find is because you're following a process, asking the right questions, that you will be winning more business. So, how am I doing on time? 32 minutes.
Perfect. You got anything else, Jimmy? You all set?
No, that's all I wanted to share.
All right, great. Well, I will take over then. And let's see.
So I'll stick around till the end to answer questions.
Yeah, I'm going to give my presentation and then we'll, we've got a couple of questions already out there. And we'll go ahead and ask those and any more that pop up. So just a reminder for everybody, if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A. All right, so I believe, yes, I am sharing my screen. The good little segue into what I'm going to talk about today, and that's going to be processes and systems. And we already had a little bit of that in week 2, where I just gave you guys a quick overview of what process is. And just to kind of give you a quick recap of that, it is just a sequence of events. It's what you do in your business. And it's different than procedures, which are what you do and like how you perform them. So process is what you do. Procedures are how you perform them. So, you know, the process is start to finish, how a bill is paid, how you pay a bill, how you receive product, etc. The procedures would be go into this software, enter in your credentials, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the more detailed stuff. So processes are just at a little bit higher level. Regardless if you have them formally documented or not, there's a process for everything in your business. So if you don't think that you're doing process, you are, because everything is somehow gets completed in your business. Whether or not you know how it's getting done is the question there. Systems, though, are going to be the technology that help you complete that process. So systems can mean a lot of things, but in the way we're going to talk about today is going to be more about that technology. So it's your CRM, it's your email service like MailChimp, it's social media, it's anything that helps improve the way that you do your business, speed things up, makes things more efficient, whatever it is. Ideally, the whole point of systems is to automate or improve your efficiency on tasks so that you can focus on those things that add value. So you want your systems doing the things that aren't adding value. It's the monkey work, the replying to emails, the auto replies, the reminders, things like that you don't need to do because you should be focusing on the more important stuff. What are the benefits of processes and systems? Should be pretty obvious, but it improves communication and morale within your company, makes everything flow a little more smoothly, and most importantly, it adds to your bottom line. And that's what we're all here for, is to learn how to make ourselves more profitable. All of this requires a good foundation. So you need to know what your business is doing before, what your business is actually, before you can figure out what your business is doing. So a lot of the subjects that we've covered through week 8, you're going to hear a lot of that again, because you're going to need to, you can't build your processes if you don't know what your business is. So if you hear me repeat some things, that's for a reason. So we are going to talk about business process management. And the first thing I want to talk about is our solopreneurs out there. So if it's just you, or if you have a few people on your team, this may not seem like something that you're going to do. It's because this really is something that most large businesses are known for. But any size business can do this, and every size business should do this. So if it's just you or your small team, start thinking of ways about how your processes, or ways that you could change your processes, like just how it affects your clients or your vendors. It's how it reaches people, how it touches people, where the handoffs are, bottlenecks, things like that. So there's value for this in any size business. The the process management is. So business process management is the link between your business's strategy and execution. So an example here for sports fans out there, and I'm going to use football because we're quickly winding down the season, and my favorite team is knocked out. So, oh well. But if you're looking at it from that standpoint, the coaches build the strategy, but it's up to the team to execute. So you are essentially the coach, and your team is your team. So you want to be involved, but you obviously can't be out on the field playing with the team. So you need to be able to direct the team from the sidelines, and it's up to them to execute well. So it's all about training and stuff like that, which we're going to get into. A lot of this sounds lofty, and it is, but don't worry, because this is something that it's a problem that most companies try to solve for, and very few companies, even Fortune 500 companies, very few of them actually do this well. They all try, they all talk about it, but it's really hard to implement because it deals a lot with people, and people are hard to work with sometimes. Like I said, it focuses on delivering value. So this is a little bit different than other types of process management like Six Sigma, Lean, total quality management, those types of things. They focus more on efficiencies and effectiveness and eliminating waste, whereas this is more about delivering value, and it's a business approach, and it's a more human approach. So I like the business process management approach to process management because it's more about people. Like we're not a factory in Japan building cars. We're selling to clients. We're creating products, selling services, whatever it is. And it's more than just flow charts. So a lot of people, when they think about process, they just think about flow charts. They think about, this drawing right here. And, there's a lot of that in there, but there's more to it. Why do you need BPM, which is business process management for anybody out there? So obviously it increases your cash through, revenues or efficiencies, even though I said it's not about efficiencies, but you find them, you fix them. And this world is accelerating and changing quickly. Your business could and will as well to meet the rapidly changing demands of the world. Everybody has experienced 2020, so it allows you to plan for disasters or opportunities quickly. And in 2020, for example, some businesses did better than others, and there's a reason for that. I mean, some of it might have been luck, but a lot of it was really because people were set up for success. They knew their business, they knew their processes, and knowing your processes is going to allow you to change quickly, because you already know what you're doing and where the problems might be in the future. Another benefit there is going to be that long-term success. So for anybody who's starting a business or who is small and wants to scale, it will allow you to scale. This will give you an idea of where you might need help in the future, where handoffs could happen, where you could outsource, or where you're outsourcing now and you could bring in-house, things like that. And then also it'll allow you to start talking about exit strategies, or thinking about it, really, because nobody ever wants to talk about it when you're starting a business, getting married, or whatever. You don't want to talk about the end, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point. So start talking. It'll start getting you thinking about exit strategies, what you're doing now, how you can improve, what you can offload, etc. And then lastly, prioritization is important. It's what's at risk, what opportunities do you have? And it's almost like having a kind of around the clock SWOT analysis occurring. The SWOT analysis that we've talked about in week 1, I think it was, it's very broad. So that's something that you do every 12 to 24 months, and it's for the entire company, et cetera, et cetera. This is more detail oriented. It's looking at what you're doing on a daily basis, and it's looking at it almost daily on, and how you could improve upon that. So the parts of the business process management. So there's a handful of things that are in this school of thought that you're not going to need. One of them is a center of excellence. So large companies have a group of people called a center of excellence, or they could have the center of excellence. And their entire job is to just go through all of the processes within the company and figure out where they can improve upon what the company does. You obviously can't afford to have a center of excellence, but we have seen businesses who have somebody listed as the process manager. So it could be your your back end IT person who's also your process manager. So they're the ones who are, kind of running through that. So it's something that you could think about in terms of giving somebody another hat to wear just to help your business go. That could be just you, whatever it is, but it's not something that you want to neglect. The only real part about BPM that is important to consider is culture. And we've talked about culture already, and it's a part of your business foundation, and it's a part of BPM. So you should consider this in all decisions, including anything outside of process, but your culture really is a driving force in the decisions you make for your business. Another thing that it adds is it creates transparency. So we've talked about that before. It shows everybody what happens throughout your business, and it allows for people to understand where the handoffs are, what happens upstream and downstream. So, it lets you know what you need to share with outside resources as well. It really just helps expose where you're strong and where you're weak and where, how to fix that. The funny thing is, we've had conversations with clients before where presidents or managers are in a room and they're describing what happens from A to Z, that there's this handoff here, this department does this, whatever it is. And you see one person just in the corner just kind of shaking their head, and they're like, what? They're like, that's not how it's done. And then it's funny to watch like a manager argue with the person who actually does the job when the person who's doing the job is like, that's not how we do it. And so that's an important part about just knowing what your processes are, is that you want to know what your people are doing. And oftentimes if you get detached from it, you don't know what's going on. Things change. People get trained incorrectly. They may get trained incorrectly, but it's an improvement. That's why you just kind of need to have your finger on the pulse of that. It's iterative. So this is, again, like I said, it's not something that you do once a year, every 2 years, whatever it is. You continue to review, and this doesn't have to be formal. And more than likely, if you're in business right now, you're already doing it. But it helps to kind of just take a step back and look at everything from a different perspective. And you might realize that there's certain things going on that you're just placing a Band-Aid on a bigger problem that's happening. So somebody's holding something together you didn't know of. There's a piece of machinery that keeps breaking down and you weren't aware of it, whatever it is. There's certain things that will just, again, allows you to just kind of like look at things, and you look at them again and again and again. And it's also just that continuous improvement in training. So it's looking at where you're strong, where you're weak, where your people are strong and weak, and then just constantly just improving and just tweaking and all of that. And it sounds like you're micromanaging, and you don't want it to come across as micromanaging, but you're just looking for ways to just kind of make everything a little bit better. And we'll kind of get into that in a second. So there's 3 areas within BPM and that are all about balance. And this is the big differentiator between other schools of process thought, is that this kind of allows you to figure out what is really valuable for you. So the 3 areas are efficiency versus quality, compliance versus agility, and integration versus networking. So efficiency versus quality. If you're efficient, you can save more money, but you could potentially be decreasing your quality. So if you produce a product, whatever that is, yes, you could cut some corners and you're going to be more efficient and you can make more and you could do that, but the quality of your product might drop because of that. So that's where you need to come in and really make that decision, that understanding of what is important for you in terms of quality, and where you want to save money. And you want to consider the human element when you're focusing on that one, because you want to know what your employees are going to think if it diminishes your brand, if it goes against your culture. You also want to think how your customers are going to react when they receive your product or service or whatever it is. Compliance versus agility. This is following the rules to or processes to a T, versus allowing your team to change as necessary. And this is all about, you set out this process, step A, step B, step C, et cetera, through, and you need somebody to follow it the whole way through. Or do you allow them to kind of do it the way that works best for them, as long as the end, kind of justifies the means? And the agility part there is, again, I could be kind of cutting corners, but I'm still producing the product that is expected of me. And this kind of empowers your people. And this will go back to that customer service presentation we had from last week, where it'll allow your people to make decisions in their best judgment for the business. So if you empower your employees to do what they think is best for the company, then in theory you should be getting a better product, a better service, whatever that is. But you want to make sure that you're not being too loose and that they still have to comply to something. And then finally, integration versus networking. So the integration is should you keep everything in-house? Should you connect all your employees and have that transparency in between departments, jobs, etc., and let everybody know how everything works? Or does it make sense to outsource to vendors, send it outside of the building? So that's really up to you. Do you want to keep it in-house? Do you want to pay somebody else to do it? And you need to consider whether or not you care what your vendors do, or whether you should care what your vendors do. As long as what you ask is what you get, that could be great. But let's say, I don't know what it is. Like they don't mesh with your culture, so then you would care. So that's where you need to kind of balance that. Areas that you want to consider when performing your process work. We have the methods and tools here, and we've already covered how to document a process briefly, and we're going to give you another recap shortly, but it's just the simple. It could be simple, it can be complicated, whatever you feel like. You want to think outside the box when you're doing your methods, especially if you've already implemented, and you want to bring outside opinions to view how everything is done. It's the whole, you can't see the forest for the trees. So a funny little story here. When I was in restaurants, and we had been open for a couple of years, and we had the kitchen set up the way it had been set up for years, and whatever it was, it worked just fine. And I walked in one day, and a new employee had just started a couple days, weeks, whatever beforehand, and he had moved something. And this is years ago, so I don't even know what it was, but I remember this interaction happening where I just walked in and he had moved something, whether it was something that we used during service. So it was the container where we had all of our sauces or something like that. And he moved it from one side of the line to the other side of the line. And, I just looked at it and I was like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, it made it that much more efficient. So instead of having to turn around here to grab this, turn back around, and then turn back around, that whole turnaround thing, whatever it was, didn't happen because the tool that he needed was right there. And I was just like, for years, we had been doing it a less efficient way. And it just took somebody who hadn't been a part of that process to come to me like, well, this is dumb. Changed it. And I was like, shit, that's how we're going to do it from now. So that's just something that is helpful, and something that you might want to consider is either bringing somebody else, outside resource in, to just kind of view it, or just taking a step back and just looking at everything without actually interacting with it. And then I already said that your tools can be complicated or simple. It's your call. So there's expensive programs out there that you can pay for. You can pay for expensive consultants to come in, or you can create just a simple anonymous way for employees to provide feedback on whatever, their jobs, whatever it is they're doing. So that's totally up to you. It's how comfortable you are and what you want to do. Delivery of the processes. So any kind of changes, you want to obviously consider how you deliver it to your team, and you want to base it upon your team needs. So you want to consider the different ways of learning. Some people are audio learners, some are visual, some are hands-on, whatever it is. And you might want to just have some one-on-one follow-ups when you make a change, if possible, to kind of gauge their retention or their comprehension of whatever changes you may have made, because some people might be embarrassed in a group setting to say, hey, I don't understand this, or I'm not grasping it, or whatever. So it's really that personal touch, and goes back to just knowing your people. So you might want to have multiple ways of learning. It's, here's the hands-on approach, along with something that you can read, because some people like to follow instructions, etc. You want to talk about incentives. So what's in it for them? People don't often like change. So you want to let them know why it's important, and not it's for the bottom line. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your job more rewarding, whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be monetary. It just could be like, this is just going to make your life a little bit better. Whatever it is, just consider that. Like I already said, culture, it should fit the voice of the company. And again, transparency. You want to just be transparent. You don't want to just say, we're going to change this. Now get back to work. You want to let them know why, so that if there are any questions or issues, you can address them there, so people aren't angry at you later when their job is more annoying, whatever it is. And then lastly, with that, the what you would consider is the support. So there's a really good chance that you're not going to get the process change correct the first time. With most things that get rolled out, you're going to have to tweak it a little bit. And so you want to be upfront about that, that this is going to be kind of an iterative process. We're going to roll this out. We're going to get some feedback. We're going to, tweak it as needed, and then get some feedback, tweak as needed until we get to where we need to be. So just let them know that you appreciate their feedback, and that both you and your team are going to have to be flexible when you make those changes. So the process of process, we're going to get into documenting and the gaps in the future state here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know that we've already covered this and some of you have already done this. And that's just the documenting, identifying gaps, and then identifying your future state. But this is just the basics of documenting processes and planning for improvements. So how you document can vary, but it should be easily accessible and understood. Organization is very important in this. So you want to have it organized in your head and organized in a way that makes sense for your company as well. You're going to start kind of at the top level of your business to define what your value chains are. And value chains are those very broad functions your business performs. So it could be procure to pay, your sales process, whatever it is. It could span multiple departments and include many people. It could be just one department. It could be just one person. It really depends on how you break it down. After you get those value chains defined, then you want to break them down into more bite-sized pieces. And so this is where you're getting into the processes, and I could go into all the different levels and all of that, but you just want to get them bite-sized to where it makes sense and you're not getting too far into the details. If you feel like you're getting too specific, you might have ventured into procedures instead of process and out of process. So just kind of, you want them bite-sized where it makes sense, but it's not too big where it's just complicated and too hard to digest. And one thing you want to consider, your time is important. So you don't need to document everything. You want to prioritize based upon the value that it gives to your business. Make sure you're utilizing your whole team when you're doing this, and you want to make sure you're getting people up and downstream to review, because those handoffs, are important, and it allows people to know what to expect or what's expected of them in the whole process. Storage is pretty simple. It should just be open to your team. Just make sure everybody has access to it if they want to. The nice thing about that is they can go in, like if they find something, if they're proactive, if they find something where they are, where they've figured out a way to improve upon what it is that they're doing, or they don't like something that's going on, they could go in and take a look at it. You can make it as complicated and detailed as you want, but make sure it's not overwhelming. And like, in all honesty, it could be scribbled on a piece of paper, but if you do, I suggest you at least take some digital pictures and store them at worst, so that you have some sort of way to organize them digitally, and it's not just like in a file cabinet or something like that. Gaps, these are these things that you're going to discover during your documentation and review. And again, we've kind of already covered these, so I'll speed through this one a bit, but these are just the opportunities for improvement. And it's not necessarily that's something that's missing in the process. So somebody could be holding something together. Something could be literally held together by duct tape. Whatever it is, these are areas for improvement, opportunities for improvement. And it could be something that's just completely missed. Like you're going to look at it and say, oh, no idea, we're not even doing that correctly or at all. And so once you get those gaps, you're going to prioritize for improvement. And then you want to define what your future state is. And this is where you want to be. Things you want to include are going to be your timeline, how long it's going to take to get there, who's included, what's changing, new things that are coming, things that are going to be eliminated. You want to talk about objectives and milestones. So that's a part of that timeline. It's going to take us 18 months to get this completed. We're going to break it into 90-day sprints. where every 90 days we'll have certain objectives that we need to hit. And then you want to create a training plan to go along with that and create a communications plan, because you don't want to just say, here's the future state, have at it. You want to make sure that if there's new technology coming or new processes, whatever, everybody's trained on it. They understand it. Create the communications plan to anybody who's involved. You could even go so far as to have communications plans ready for your customers if you know that there's a chance that you're going to have some sort of break in your service, whatever it is. Getting into metrics. So this is something that I love, and without naming the fateful week that we had earlier this year, everything can be measured. So you want to benchmark where you are, and you want to make sure that you can measure it. And again, everything can be measured. It might be a little fuzzy, whatever it is. If you dare go back to week 3 and view that video again, you can think about all the things that are affected by the process and what has been improved or what could be negatively affected. Like there's improving a process doesn't mean everything's going to get better. Something might get worse. So you want to think about that, but you obviously want to weigh the pros and cons of these 3 things are going to get better. This one's going to get worse. That's something that you're willing to deal with. Let's go ahead and roll it. You want to make sure that you're picking things that you can easily measure and quickly measure, and that will act as indicators of adoption or success. So those are going to be your key indicators. We call them key performance indicators. And that could be literally anything based upon whatever your process is, but it'll help you understand how successful you are, where you need to continue to work on things. And the metrics will allow you to set goals for improvement. So you can't know, like you won't know if you've improved if you don't know where you are to start with, and it'll give you something to kind of achieve for, work on, and you could pass that on to your team as well. It'll give them something to kind of work towards. Now let's talk about how improving your business here. So implementing and tracking a post-launch. So transparency is key. Weird. We're talking about transparency again. That's a theme throughout most of this academy. You want to make sure you're transparent. You want to have more than one communication when you're implementing. Don't just say, hey, something's coming, and then boom, next day that they come in, everything's changed. You want to be clear of the objectives so that everybody knows what's going on, why it's going on, and what's expected of them, and make sure that you're supportive of your team. So some people might feel like their position is being eliminated, especially if this is something that you've never done before, but just make sure they know that it's all about value, and that you're incentivizing them. You're letting them know that this is going to make their job that much better. You want to run through what's being done today and then show them what's going to change. So this is technology changes. You want to define what they are. We're going to talk about technology a little bit later. You want to tell them goals and your expectations. And again, we want to focus on the positive. There might be some negative, but you want to focus on the what's in it for them. You want to make sure you're providing any materials. So that's training materials, like the process review, job description changes, anything like that. You want to make sure that everything is there so that everybody is fully aware of what's going on and you don't have any issues later. And if you do, you've got yourself covered. You want to describe what the training plan is going to look like, whether that's, it could be just a simple, you did it this way, now you're doing it that way. Simple. Or if you're implementing a whole new system of doing things, it's going to be over this many weeks, and here's what the training calendar looks like for everybody. And then finally, you want to be open for feedback. So answer every question that you can. If you don't know the answer, tell them you're going to get back to them on it. Don't say no, don't shoot them down. I mean, this is something that you're going to do, and that's fine, but you want to make sure that you're open for feedback. And if you have pushback, you want to just set an adoption time in there for your employees, because some people might push back just because they're resistant to change. And you want to give them some time just to, kind of acclimate to what's going on. Tracking and post-launch. So once you launch, you want to start tracking your metrics. So ideally you have your benchmark, so you can start tracking all of those metrics along the way after you've implemented that process. You want to continue to receive feedback. So again, that's back to just being open and transparent. Like I said before, you're going to probably have to adjust as necessary along the way, because you didn't get it right the first time, and that's okay. Like it's not going to be perfect the first time. It might be, but there's going to be things that you're going to have to tweak. So it's fine to adjust. Just make sure that your goals are being hit. You're still tracking on your metrics, all that type of stuff. And there's certain things that you can't adjust, such as new technology. So if you implement a new computer system, you might be out of luck if something's not working, and you'll have to adjust how you do it. And the one thing, though, one of our favorite phrases over here is you have freedom within the framework. So this is kind of back to empowering employees, empowering yourself. You want to provide the guardrails for your employees and for yourself, that they can go so far this way or so far that way, but they're still kind of going in the direction that you want them to. And this will allow them to adapt and adopt the whole process a little bit better, because they're going to find what works best for them. And as long as they're going in the right direction and hitting those goals, you should be fine. And then there is you want to do the postmortem. So after a couple weeks, months, whatever it is that you have in your timeline, you want to go back and look at everything and make sure that what you set out to do is what you're actually doing. So it's possible that what you did wasn't successful. So you need to go back and determine why. You need to maybe you're solving for the wrong problem. You didn't get the buy-in. You didn't document it correctly, whatever it is. Go back and look at everything, so that the next time that you do some sort of process improvement, like you're just that much better at implementing it. So that's on processes. We're going to jump into systems. This isn't going to take too terribly long, but like I said, the systems are going to be those things that are like the tools that help you do your job a little bit better. So once you know what your processes are, you might need to find tools to improve or replace those processes altogether. And a system isn't a process, and the internal processes that are happening within that system may not be best suited for your needs. So what you're going to want to do is really you're going to need to make the decision of whether or not you want to change your business to meet the technology. So this is probably the most common scenario, especially for small businesses, where you're going to upgrade to a new piece of technology, and you're just going to have to change how you do your business because you can't afford a custom technology solution. So just think about that if you're buying a new piece of technology that you might have to change how you do business. It's possible that you could change the technology. So it's either getting new technology that fits your processes, or maybe a patch to that piece of technology that you want to meet your business needs. This could be as simple as upgrading your account type. So if you have, let's say, MailChimp, and you need something else, you can upgrade your account for an online service like that, and bam, you got everything that you need. One little tip, though, is don't forget to go in and take advantage of the other features that come with that upgrade. A lot of times people will upgrade a service because they need that one thing, and they don't realize that there's a dozen other things that they could utilize that will make their business that much better. So don't forget about those. And changing the technology, generally speaking, is more costly and complicated than adjusting your processes to the technology. So just consider that if you're going to change the tech to meet your needs versus just changing your business to meet the technology, that's just kind of the trade-off that you need. The most common, though, is probably a combination of the two, where you get a new piece of technology and you kind of adjust it to adjust the way it works to your needs, and then adjust processes to meet somewhere in the middle. So those are just some things that you want to think about there. But before you can do any of that, you need to make sure that you know your processes. So you can't pick the technology without knowing what it is that you do. So that's the importance of knowing what your processes are. And if you document your processes and you document them well, you've basically built requirements for your systems. So this is, if you go out and you're looking for something else, you already know what it is that you do. And with so many technology solutions out there, there's a chance that you could find something that hits most of what it is that you do. Let's see if I'm on the right. Well, yeah. Oh yeah, tips and tricks. Here we go. So yeah, you want to clearly define what the problem is that you're solving for and the desired solution. So again, you know what your processes are, you know what you need. So you want to figure out what the desired solution is, and you want to determine if technology is actually necessary. A lot of times people are like, oh, well, let's just buy a piece of tech that'll fix it. Maybe you just need to change your process a bit. You might not need to invest in anything. You just need to reassess what your business does. And you also want to determine if it's going to replace the whole process or just a part of the process, and then do an ROI, a return on investment calculation on that to determine whether or not it actually makes sense to do that. If you're just changing technology to change technology, that might not make sense. You want to make sure that you're clear about the problem that you're trying to solve. When you're talking to salespeople, sorry, Jimmy, many will try and sell you just to sell. I know Jimmy wouldn't do that, but they'll try and sell you just to sell. We've talked to many people. It's happened to us where people come in and they're just trying to hit a quota, whatever it is. So you want to make sure that you're asking for references in your industry, references from from whoever that salesperson is, that company is. You can ask for free or reduced trials for those software solutions. Sometimes they have light versions that they don't advertise, something that's a little bit better suited for your needs, a little cheaper. Obviously, you want to ask for demonstrations, free demonstrations, the free trials again. And then you want to see what else you can get out of them. So training materials, are they required? Can courses be included in this? Anything that you can get, just make sure that you're asking for that. You want to make sure that you're doing your own research as well. So that's talking to people, asking for references, asking around your industry, Facebook groups, whatever it is. And you want to make sure that you are being upfront with your team about what to expect. We've already kind of covered that, but the systems are a part of your processes. So you may be eliminating, speeding up, or just otherwise changing what it is that you do. And you want to make sure that you include those in the documentation of your future state. And you want to make sure you're talking to everybody who's going to be affected by that. So they may no longer be performing a process, but now they're monitoring it instead. That might free the time up for something, for them to do something else or something that they would rather prefer to do. So one of the interesting stories that we had from a guest we've had on our podcast is they did a really good job of getting customer reviews, and we asked them how they got so many customer reviews, and he said that it was a part of their sales process. After a salesperson closed on a client, they were supposed to ask for a review, but they found out that the salespeople weren't doing that because that wasn't making them money. They wanted to go on to the next sale, so they just automated it, and it was that simple. And so after a certain thing happens in the process, the sale gets closed in their CRM, whatever it is, boom, it just kicks out an automated email. Simple solution, and they get a ton of reviews because of that. And then lastly, on systems, you want to make sure that you keep it as simple as possible. So this obviously depends upon your business and your budget. This could be as simple as just creating a new Excel file, like the one that Jimmy's going to hand out to everybody for tracking. And it's simple, it's cheap, it's free actually, and it just takes a little bit of your time. It could be an integrated set of tools that deliver independent automated processes. And it could be complicated. It could be simple. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. And you want to make sure that you want to consider the cost of maintaining it as well. So a lot of times people are excited to bring in a new piece of technology. They don't consider the fact that now they're going to have to once a month pay somebody to come in and fix what they broke with their new computer system, whatever it is. And you want to make sure you're considering sunk costs. So that's time that's going to get spent on trainings when your team could be selling. Downtime. If you're going to be down for a weekend while you're transferring over, whatever it is, that's a weekend that you're not doing business. Is that worth it? And one of the things that we've seen happen a lot of times when people are implementing new technology is you have the kind of hockey stick approach where your business goes down because your customers don't like what's going on. And then, it'll bounce back up, but it's got that kind of hockey stick look and when you're tracking your revenues there. Lastly, you want to make sure that you are aware of scope creep. So this is where you buy one thing and then you need to buy another thing and then something else happens, et cetera, et cetera. So here at SB Pace, we have a bunch of tools that we use out there, like Kartra, where this class is, and the things like that, MailChimp, our own website, a CRM, et cetera, et cetera. And we started adding all these tools, and then like we want everything to connect. And then we had to get Zapier, and then all of these things. And at one point we're like, what are we doing? We have so many tools out there, and we're doing it just to connect things. Not all automations are a good thing. Like, you don't need to pay for something if you can do it quickly, easily, manually, and it's really no skin off your back to do it. So just kind of consider that when you're looking at new tools and systems and things like that. So last slide here, and we'll jump into the Q&A. Just want to recap everything. Don't forget about return on investment. And if you need help with that, or you want to go back to look at week 3, feel free to go ahead and do that. And you just want to make sure that it's worth your time or money. Working just to work or upgrading just to upgrade can hurt you. So don't do it just because you can or just because you want to. Make sure it makes sense. That's kind of back to the ROI thing. The goal should be finding those things that should be happening or could be performed better and improve the process, things that could be automated. So you want to increase the value of the business, and value doesn't necessarily have to have a direct effect on your revenue. Just because you do X doesn't mean that you're going to see Y in revenue increases immediately. It could happen down the line, but if you're doing something, let's say, that's going to improve employee morale, that's not going to translate to increased revenues tomorrow, but 6 months from now it might. So just kind of consider that as you're looking at things. Consider training, incentivizing is important. Combination of the two. So just make sure that you're just looking at the different ways that you're going to increase the value. Ultimately, you want to be working in your business or working on your business, not in it. So this is you not doing the day-to-day tasks. This is you working on that strategy. You're that football coach. You're not, the quarterback, the lineman, everything else on the field. You're there making that strategy, and the plays are running themselves. Don't forget about your core values, your cultures, your financials. You just like that's your business. You don't want to make changes to process, tools, etc. If you're all about customer service, you don't want to automate responses, because people know when they get an automated response versus when they get a handwritten letter from somebody in your company, or a hand typed email, something like that. Communications and transparency. I'm going to say it one more time. Transparency is key. So make sure that you let everybody in your company know what's going on, why it's going on. You don't have to tell them everything, but let them, it shouldn't be a surprise. You want to create an environment that reflects your core values. You want to make sure everybody's aware of your goals, budgets, projections, etc. Lastly, keep it simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Just make sure that it's simple and it works for you. And with that, we're going to hop into Q&A. So we got a bunch of questions out here. Let's see. All right, number 1. This is for Jimmy. Could you take a tool like BombBomb, which is video messaging, and send those messages through Hubspot? Really, what she's wondering is if Hubspot offers more than email for customer connections.
Great question. And great information, Corey. I wrote down a lot of stuff too that ties into some of the things that I was saying, and I'll cover them in some of the questions here that I'm seeing. Yes. So HubSpot is more than just a email platform. So it's not BombBomb, but there's another video. So we send out a lot of videos that are embedded in our emails. All of our emails, all the reps can create their own templates. So it's very easy to send personalized templates. You're not typing the same email over and over again. All all of our documentation, so any of our technical specifications, marketing materials, those are all housed in HubSpot. So no one has to go, where's the latest this? Where do I find this? And they're constantly reaching out. All that stuff is housed inside of HubSpot. So yes, it is way more than a quote unquote CRM and an inbound marketing platform. So, and again, like Corey mentioned, there is a free version of it. So if you don't have a CRM, it's a great way to start. And also you don't need to boil the ocean. You don't need to overthink things. I mean, we're probably using the platform to 20% of its capability. It's so powerful, but start, keep it simple, gain some momentum, and get into a cadence.
Awesome, thanks. Next question is from our accountant who loves the spreadsheet. Do you have any luck convincing potential clients to change their budget to include your product due to the value proposition or cost benefit analysis?
Yes, absolutely. So that's the importance of asking very good questions and uncovering differentiated needs that only your solution can provide. So if you're doing that, there really should be no pricing issues. So yes, if you're following that process and you're providing a solid solution that's going to solve their problems, a lot of the times they will add or buy more, or a lot of times what we find is that there's actually not just one product that we're selling into them, it's 3. And because our value proposition is so high and the way that we engage more of as a solution provider than just a transactional type hardware salesperson like Corey talked about, is they'll definitely spend more. So
awesome.
Good question.
All right, next one. How do you decide the percentage on each of those buckets? So the vision, value, power, and plan.
Yeah, great question. Those really map to like the deal probability. So when you're in a deal, if you're just in the vision bucket, you're only 10% of the way. So that really ties into once quotes get started created. As I'm looking at my sales dashboard and pipeline from a dollars and cents standpoint, if they're only in that phase, then it's gonna kind of prorate that deal. So I'm more accurately projecting where our quarterly and yearly sales numbers are going to be coming in.
Okay.
But you don't necessarily need those to start with.
Great. Next one is a statement, a follow-up to that. I also want to say this has been really informative. Super thorough.
Thanks, Carol. That's awesome. I'm happy I could help.
All right, next question. Despite how annoying cold calling can be, it is necessary. How much time do you spend on cold calling versus networking versus emails, etc.?
Great question. One thing I did write down that Corey had touched on, and that's transparency. So to Bill's question, this is all part of our process, and there should be no confusion when you have a clear process in place. And that gives all the reps transparency. They all know what they should be doing, right? It's aligned with our core values and our process. And it also gives them direction. So I've been a part of I've had team members and I've been a part of leadership teams where we did a really bad job of putting a process and giving direction. And it's why people leave, because they don't know what they should be doing. So to Bill's question is, it's really, I try not to micromanage. There's different sales reps operate in different ways. They go from A to Z in different manners. But typically our cadence is that it's emails and it's calls after that. So it's those two combined, because there is a really big human element there, and networking is an important piece. So they all kind of go together, and you need to be doing all of them. You can't just do one. And the more credibility you have, the better you are at building that business relationship. you'll find yourself on the phone talking a lot more. And again, the phone is a really good way to give that transparency, because as all of us know, a lot can get lost in translation when just sending emails out. So yeah, it's a part of our cadence for sure. Hopefully that answered his question.
And if yeah, that good point. If these aren't answering your questions, feel free to retype the question and we will come back to that. Next question: how frequently do you review or modify your sales plan?
Sales plan as like the goal for the year, like quotas, or are you talking about the sales process? So I can kind of answer both. I mean, you definitely want to have leadership without title. And as Corey had mentioned, it's extremely important to make sure your team understands that you're there to support, but also you're there to listen. So to Corey's point earlier is you might have someone on your team that has some really good ideas on how to do things better, and it's in your best interest to listen to them. So if there are ways to make improvements by modifying either your sales plan, so from a number standpoint, or your process, I would do that. I try not to, but if there are ways to improve and make things better, you definitely should look at implementing that. And again, I'm with Corey, is that it's the KISS model: keep it simple, stupid. You don't have to overthink it. Simple is better.
All right. Yeah. And then Bill followed up with annual basis. So I guess he's wondering, yeah, I guess if you're reviewing or modifying on an annual basis, but you're saying just kind of as needed, you're kind of reviewing it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Next one's for me. Do you think that if a business has a really fluid process, support an ever-changing software list, would it be beneficial for one person to do those steps, process, and procedures, rather than have the entire team have to add/build them? So that really depends upon what the process is. And it depends upon the workload and exactly what's going on. If everything can be performed by one person, then yeah, go right ahead. Leave it all with that one person. I would suggest that you have cross-trained, so that if that person has to take a day off or decides that they're moving to the other side of the country, whatever it is, that you run the risk of having issues if only one person in your business knows how, what that job is. And then also you want to make sure that you're aware of what it is that they're doing. So if you're managing somebody and they do one process start to finish, that's fine, but you need to make sure you understand what that process is, because if you don't know what they're doing, they can do whatever they want, and you don't know if they're doing it right or wrong. So I would, it just depends on the situation, and I hate giving you it depends, but it's hard to say without looking at the specific scenario to determine whether or not you should split it apart or have it all with one person. It's whatever makes the most sense and is more efficient. Like, you don't want to split it up just to split it up, but you also don't want, you run the risk of having it fail if it's all on one person's shoulders. So if that didn't answer that, let me know. How often do you recommend evaluating a company's processes? So this is back to the presentation. You're gonna, from a BPM perspective, you want to do it as often as you can, but it's kind of like a part of your daily routine, weekly routine. It's walking through, making sure that depending on the size of your company, sitting down with everybody weekly, quarterly, whatever makes sense for you, to just kind of run through what it is that they're doing and understand pain points, things that they like, things that they don't like, just ways that you can improve upon their job. It helps you understand your business better, and it helps improve that communication and that relationship you have with that employee, because it makes them feel more valued. You actually care about what it is that they're doing. And so that's the BPM approach, because you're you're performing that miniature SWOT often. Like, what's strong about this? What's weak? Where are the opportunities? What's the threat for this? And it's just kind of like just a quick glance at everything as you go through, reevaluating the entire process. Like if you're looking start to finish, I wouldn't really evaluate that unless you're making major changes. You can make little tweaks along the way, and that's great. But if you're looking at an entire value chain, like your entire sales process, the only time that I would really evaluate what you do there is if you're, let's say, bringing in a new piece, a new CRM, new piece of technology, whatever it is, and you need to figure out how that's going to affect everything and how it's upstream and downstream. So that's that. As far as systems go, does this only relate to technology? Could it also be purchasing a new piece of equipment to make the process faster? Yes, systems are anything that aren't human in this instance. So it could be a typewriter is a system. So it could be anything that's going to improve efficiency, speed, value, add value, whatever it is, it's going to affect the process. So yes, technology is a system, any technology. And then as a solopreneur, how do you manage to not work in your business? You are the coach and the team. Suggestions on how to balance this. So you are the coach and the team, but you also have the opportunity to outsource. So those things that you're doing that you might not be good at, you don't want to do, anything like that, like you outsource those. Yes, you're going to be working in your business and all of that, but you need to make sure that you're setting time aside quarterly, at least annually, to set the strategy for your business, to review what you're doing, what you did well, what you didn't do well, where your opportunities are. So that's more you do have to wear all the hats in that instance, but outsource where you can and just make sure that you're setting aside time for strategy. I don't know, Jimmy, if you have anything to add to that.
No, well said.
All right. Any other questions for anybody out there?
Corey, can I add one thing that you had brought up? And this goes back, I can't remember who had the question, but as you guys are selling product and, a lot of people are going to ask for discounts. And this goes the polling question or reviews, I guess is what you were talking about. One of the things that I found really helpful in this back in my software days is that if someone does want a discount and it's really kind of getting in the way of you closing the deal, one thing that you can do is you can say, if I give you this discount, will you do the following? One is let me use your logo on my website. Two, I can write a case study on the solution that we're putting in place. And three, be a part of two webinars talking about the implementation, our product, etc. So make sure that if you are giving a discount, that you're getting something back in return. And a lot of times you can really leverage that from a marketing standpoint. So just a little, it's an old IBM trick. If I will you.
It's a great tip. All right. Unless there are any other questions, we can call it a night. Jimmy's going to pass on that his presentation in that Excel file. Send it to me. I will post that out in Kartra along with my presentation. If you have any questions, you've got our contact info. Jimmy should be out there. I'll make sure it is, but I'll drop that out there in week 9 so that if you have any questions for him, feel free to reach out. And other than that, I appreciate everybody for attending, and we are looking forward to next week.
Yeah, Corey, if anybody in the program has any questions, I'm more than happy to help. So have them reach out, email, or give me a call. I'd love to help and support. So thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jimmy. Thank you. All right. See y'all later.
Take care. Thank you.